What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. Chris Pennell here. We're breaking down week 16 of the NFL season for DraftKings and FanDuel. If you enjoy, make sure you like down below. Subscribe to the channel if brand new. Let's dive right into it. And as always, we'll start with the quarterback position and kind of a smaller pool for me this week. I do think there is a lot of fringe guys that I don't have listed on here just because I don't talk about every quarterback on the slate, but this is like the main starting point for me at least. Now, for cash games, I think we just spend all the way down for Penix at $4,500. I mean, he is basically min-price. Atlanta has a pretty good team total of 26.5 this week. It's a really good match versus the Giants defense, and he has got some really good weapons around him. So at $4,500, I think it's hard to beat that. I got him projected for roughly around 15 fantasy points. And obviously there's upside for more, downside for more too. But from a median standpoint, he looks pretty solid at that price, and he allows us to get some more expensive players, skill position players in our lineup. If you're not going with Penix, I do think DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson for the Cleveland Browns, who's getting the start, which that's very unfortunate because they are robbing us from a Jameis Winston versus Joe Burrow masterclass game that I think could be horribly funny. Like a lot of points being scored, just no defense. That would have been really fun. They robbed us from it. We're stuck with DTR. He's a terrible quarterback. He can run a little bit. It's not the worst play in the world, but I do prefer Penix. We have Anthony Richardson in a similar way of DTR where he's going to run the ball a little bit. Passing's obviously not that great. Alec Pierce is out for that, but I don't think it's a huge deal. I think Anthony Richardson is fine at his price point. And the Kyler Murray scam is back once again. Good matchup versus Carolina. I did not get to him in tournaments last week. I still thought he was the fine, the cash game quarterback to get to. Ownership reflected that. Did not get into the end zone once again. Still got you around 10 fantasy points, but man, that was once again just not into the end zone. Very unfortunate for Kyler Murray owners, but good matchup versus the Carolina Panthers this week. I really like James Conner, so that's kind of the side that I am preferring, the run game in this one. But Trey McBride, Kyler Murray, James Conner look like fine plays. Just gotta get Kyler in the end zone. We'll see if it happens ever. If you're not going with any of those three, like those are my three favorite cash game QBs currently. If you had the money for Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, I mean, yes, by all means, those are the guys I would prefer to get to, but the salary cap is a thing. Let's talk some of the stacks here for tournaments. If you guys ever doing access to the stuff that I show you on the screen, I got a lot more to it. Project out every single player, set out the entire slate, projections for both sides, optimizer, cheat sheets, ownership projections, whatnot. You know where to find it. Link we found down below. But let's look at the scatter plot because I think it's kind of easier to visualize it that way. So it's still Friday, so some of these things can change. But if we're looking at projected ownership compared to team totals, on the right, it's going to be the better team totals, and up top, it's going to be the higher owned. So we get kind of put it in quadrants here, looking at the mean. And if we look in the top right, these are going to be your chalkier, higher implied team total teams. Arizona, once again, Detroit, Cincinnati, Los Angeles kind of makes it in the cut. Buffalo is hovering that line. The thing with Buffalo is they have an amazing team total this week, the highest of any team. It's just they're 14-point favorites. And outside of Josh Allen, like who else do you really want to play with him? Because you just never know who to stack with Josh Allen. A lot of people played Amari Cooper last week. I liked Amari Cooper. I did not get to a Josh Allen team last week. I just had other interests elsewhere. But like it's hard because Cooper did absolutely nothing. Khalil Shakir got into the end zone, but it's just such a spread out offense. All the points just get accumulated by Josh Allen. You really have no idea else where it's going to end up going. Like Ty Johnson was the wide receiver one on that team last week. If you're looking at teams that should go a little bit under owned, but still have decent implied team totals this week, Atlanta, like, yeah, Penix will be chalky, but I'm not sure his pass catching options are going to be overly owned this week. So just making a full on stack with Penix could be a decent way in GPPs this week. Philadelphia, another team that's kind of going under the radar. And then I believe Minnesota is mixed in there with, I want to say, San Francisco. They're getting toppled over each other. I think Juwan Jennings might get some ownership. If people have enough money for Jefferson, they might get to him. But I think Jamar Chase ends up getting higher owned with that. So just doing like Sam Darnold stacks with Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, or Jordan Addison, some combination of that too. Or even Brock Purdy. Like Juwan Jennings should have some ownership. But if you just throw Brock Purdy in that, pair him with it, and then maybe throw in a George Kittle, that's fine for tournaments and stacks. So just trying to find teams in these bottom right quadrants here, which I know there's not much this week, and that'll happen, is not a bad way to go for tournament. And if we compare this from projection to ownership, it's going to be pretty similar looking. Like Cincinnati's the highest projected team, which they have been for a couple of weeks now. But when you have Burrow, Chase Brown, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, it's hard not to. Detroit, even with no David Montgomery, they're still near the top of the board there. Ownership-wise, Jahmyr Gibbs is really skewing that a lot, but they will be a chalkier team just because of that this week. But yeah, Philly, San Francisco, Minnesota, these teams do project well, but they're kind of under the average threshold for ownership where they don't look too bad in tournaments because they definitely have high ceilings. Like Sam Darnold, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, we've seen that stack absolutely pop off before, actually very recently, and it's a decent matchup versus Seattle. Buffalo's kind of hovering that line, but I mean, these are definitely the teams that look pretty interesting in GPPs if you're trying to get away from ownership. I'm not saying you can't play those teams in the top right, which I certainly will be this week, but if you're just trying to get off some ownership a little bit, it makes sense to kind of look in the bottom right there at some teams that might go a little bit overlooked. All right, moving over to the build here. As I always say, guys, the purpose of this is not for me to give you guys a lineup. It's just something I put together as we talk through it. I pick a quarterback, able to stack with it, and that's as simple as that. It's just supposed to be a process type video, and you guys can apply your own favorite plays and use a similar process for, say, a single entry or 3 max type of contest. So we have our pick of the litter at quarterback. I think it's pretty wide open this week. Michael Penix does sound pretty fun. Probably going to end up being the highest owned quarterback. I still think the stack is in play for tournaments, but let's just play Caleb Williams. I don't know, $5,500. That sounds fun. Good matchup versus Detroit. That defense is absolutely decimated right now. That whole team is dealing with a lot of injuries. So I think the Bears stacks are pretty cheap this week. So sounds fun. We'll move on to running back. And a bit of a smaller pool for me this week, which I always like. I like being condensed at running back because when it's so super spread out, it's just kind of annoying, you know? But if we're looking at cash games, I think there is pretty much 3 guys everyone's going to want to play this week. 3 to 4. But number 1, Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, he is the play of the week. The Bears are 5th worst versus the run when it comes to fantasy running backs. The Detroit Lions have a 28.5 implied team total. They're 6.5 point favorites. And no David Montgomery. That's the big thing. And he's only $7,500. He's going to get 20 plus opportunities. He's going to get the receiving work. I mean, yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs is awesome. And now he's going to be the focal point, which he's already been a focal point. But now that he's the focal point, there's no 1A, 1B situation anymore. At $7,500, yeah, he projects absolutely awesome. He's my RB1 of the week, and point per dollar wise, he's near the top as well. And then James Conner, he's a boring running back, but that's totally fine. He gets his work, he gets into the end zone, and he puts up fantasy points. That's all I can ask for. Great game last week versus the New England Patriots. Even better matchup this week on the road in Carolina. They are dead last, allowing 30 fantasy points per game to the running back position in 140 rushing yards. I believe the Arizona Cardinals are first in overall yards per carry this season. So, I mean, just an absolute nut spot for James Conner. So, Jahmyr Gibbs, James Conner, those are the starting points. And then after that, it's kind of pretty even. Patrick Taylor should be the RB1 for the 49ers this week. Arendo just got ruled out. So, $5,200. If he gets 15 plus touches, I mean, it's kind of hard to beat that. The Niners system just produces solid fantasy running backs. I believe he's minus 125 for anytime touchdown. I'll take my chances at that price point, especially on FanDuel. $4,800. He's half the price of guys like Bijan Robinson, Chase Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs. While I don't have him projected near those guys, it's not that far off where he should be half the price. So, I mean, that's a really nice value to open some things up in your lineup. Bijan Robinson, they have a rookie quarterback. Maybe they don't throw the ball as much, but they should just slam Bijan here versus the Giants. Really nice matchup. Devon Chan, looks like Jalen Waddle is going to be out. He's currently listed as doubtful. That's just less mouths to feed. Tyreek Hill's also questionable too. So there's a chance it could just be Devon Chan and like Malik Washington and Johnny Smith running around. That would be a bump for him. Other than that, I think we hit pretty much everybody else. James Cook is just a weird tournament play for me. I could not play him on FanDuel, $8,700. But if people want to get the Josh Allen, I don't think anyone's going to play James Cook this week. And it's a great matchup versus the Patriots. Highest implied team total. They're like 14 point favorites. So if you want to get really weird with no ownership, I don't think anyone's playing James Cook this week. Okay, back to the build here. I almost feel like just slamming the 2 chalk running backs this weekend, which Jahmyr Gibbs for this specific build is going to work out anyway, just correlation game stack wise, because we are going with the Bears stack. I'm probably going to grab 2 pass catchers with Caleb, and then we can just use Jahmyr Gibbs as the run back option, which I think is totally fine. And I would love to play James Conner if we had the money for it. I would love to. I mean, we didn't go expensive at quarterback, and I believe Caleb's pass catching options are like in the 5K range. I think Keenan is, Dunze is, and I'm pretty sure Moore is $5,900. So that's not overly expensive. So we should have enough wiggle room to make that work. Now, wide receiver can always be very redundant because we're already talking about stacks. So I'm just going to highlight some of the cash game plays, and then obviously if you're playing Penix, look at London. If you're playing Sam Darnold, look at Jefferson, look at Addison. I mean, I think it makes sense by now. I say it every time, but I never knew if someone new is watching the video. But the best cash game targets is once again pretty much just the mid-range here. T. Higgins, Brian Thomas Jr., BTJ, amazing game last week with Mac Jones. Malik Neighbors, Dwan Jennings, Jacoby Myers. Like, these are pretty much your best cash game targets. And I think it's kind of easy to go mid-range at the wide receiver position this week. And there's just really nothing of value that I like. I mean, David Moore, there's the potential that Jalen Coker is going to be out. Xavier Leggett is also out. So, I mean, just lack of bodies here. 47 over under in that game. Like, I mean, we don't have many options. I mean, if Coker plays, you can look at him. Malik Washington with no Jalen Waddle, that would be interesting. Pretty much wide receiver 2 status there. Well, if you want to put him behind a Chan and Jonnu Smith in targets, you could do that. But we'll have to see what happens with Tyreek Hill. But I think Malik Washington is playable this week. Other than that, we're kind of just looking at stacking options here. DJ Moore, $5,700. He'll probably end up being the highest owned wide receiver on the entire slate. So really, just the mid-range looks really good. That's where I would stick to in cash games. I don't really trust any of the cheap plays unless something else happens where someone gets ruled out. We'll kind of have to figure that out ourselves as the weekend progresses. But you're not probably getting to the expensive guys in cash games. If you are, Jamar Chase will be the number 1 option, and then Puka Nacua. But other than that, I like the mid-range. Okay, back to the build here. Let's grab a couple of pass catchers with Caleb Williams, and it's going to be pretty easy. We're just going to grab a couple of these similarly priced wide receivers here. So we have DJ Moore, $5,700. He's my favorite option. Most people's favorite option. I'll be honest, this is a pretty chalky lineup so far, but you know what? It's my video. I can make the rules. So let's find Keenan. He's $5,300. I know he's old and washed, but he's still getting targets and he's still getting some production. So that's all we can ask for. So we have $4,700 left for the last 4 spots. That includes a cheap defense, probably a cheaper tight end. So I don't really have any concerns about that. And then it's pretty much the normal faces at tight end. We always have Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, Jonnu Smith now these days. He's not quite on their tier, but I mean, you pretty much always have these 3 guys. They're heavily targeted in their offenses. They're pretty skilled. They're really good, especially McBride and Bowers. And eventually we're going to get a touchdown from McBride. There is no better time to do it. Kyler Murray vowed he's going to do it, but I'm not sure I can trust Kyler too much. He also said he's going to get the ball to Marvin Harrison. That doesn't really happen too often either. But either way, love McBride this week if you can afford him. If you're spending down, Brenton Strange is probably the safest option. He's been a target hog. Michael Mayer if you want to get weird. I believe Zach Ertz is questionable, so Ben Sinnott, whatever, the rookie tight end, he would get a bump if Zach Ertz ends up being ruled out. And then, I mean, Hawkinson, if you have Sam Darnold, Hunter Henry, I play him on FanDuel because he's always cheap, $5,000. Other than that, just boring plays besides the ones we talked about. All right, let's finish this off here. So around $5,000, we can throw in a random defense. I honestly don't know which one I want to go with this week. There's a few that caught my eye. We have the Raiders and Jaguars game, which I said I like some stacks from that one, but it's also a projected lower total. Raiders, Jaguars, I don't think you can go wrong with either. I'd really like to play the Bengals. I know their defense is horrible. I don't usually spend that much on a defense, but let's see if we can make that fit. If not a huge deal. We'll throw in a cheaper tight end here. I guess we could probably throw in Brenton Strange. I don't think he's going to get 12 targets again, but I mean, the ball's going to go somewhere in that offense, and Mac Jones at least seems to trust him. So that's $6,000 left, and we can probably do pretty much whatever we want here. I don't think we're going to be able to get like an expensive running back, because if we throw in, like, I'd really like a Chase Brown this week, but I'm not sure how easy that'll be. That's $4,400, and like I said, the cheap wide receivers really don't look that good this weekend. I mean, you have Coker. Malik Washington is down here somewhere. If you went just a little bit cheaper and maybe you played, say, if you wanted to go the 3 running back route and you played Patrick Taylor to save your money, that puts you at $6,900, which then you get a little bit more fun. You can get T. Higgins, Cooper Kupp, Drake London, Brian Thomas if you wanted. So we'll kind of leave that up for interpretation, but overall, the bones of this build is the Bears and Lions stack. So you have Caleb Williams double stack with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen running it back with Jahmyr Gibbs. You have James Conner, Patrick Taylor, and flex. Bengals defense, because it's DTR, I'm sure we'll get some points somehow. And then Brenton Strange, $3,500. I mean, he's going to get the ball. The ball's going to go somewhere in this offense. I'm not too scared of the Raiders defense. So don't hate the way that lineup looks. Like I said, I am not building a lineup for you guys. You have to apply your own favorite plays, but you can use a similar process. Like, we could easily switch this to a Sam Darnold, Jefferson, Addison build and run it back with, say, JSN or whatever. And as per usual, let's just get a quick 20 max here to see which players are popping and give you a good idea of what, like, around the industry, who's going to get steamed up, who's going to be popular in DFS this Sunday. So let's go to position stacks here. Just very simple. We're not taking too much time doing it. If you're actually doing this, please take more time. We're not going to force a run back option. Also, going to put a little bit of randomness on here with the ownership projections. We'll make tight end flex ineligible. Run a quick 20 max here, and I'll see you in a second. It looks like we got our build done here, and I'm seeing a lot of ugly quarterbacks. Aiden O'Connell, Anthony Richardson, Kyler Murray. Sounds like a very fun weekend here. Looks like we got some more fun ones down here in Joe Burrow, which I might be blocking. Brock Purdy. All right, so let me see. Players are getting jammed in. James Conner, Jaguars, Malik Neighbors, Joey Myers, Trey McBride. A lot of Breece Hall, more than I expected. It could change by Sunday, but Jennings, Kyler, like, yeah, not overly surprised about that. It looks like for this specific build, just since we didn't really play into it too much, I wasn't getting much Penix. But I do think Penix is obviously a fine play. But my projections seem to really like Anthony Richardson and Kyler Murray, which sounds fun because I hate them. But Arizona, San Francisco, Indianapolis. I do want to mention that there's probably a lot of Michael Pittman and Josh Downs. And that is mainly just because I was forcing a pass catcher with Anthony Richardson. And that's one of those things where if you're actually building, you don't have to force a pass catcher with a guy like him because first off, AR is not very good at throwing the football accurately. And secondly, he can get there by himself. Like 60 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns is certainly possible for Anthony Richardson. He's like Josh Allen, but just worse, and he just doesn't really throw the ball nearly as well. So a very, very Walmart, Dollar General version of Josh Allen. But other than that, I mean, some of these players are not overly surprising if you look at the teams. Arizona, San Francisco, Indy, Las Vegas, Jacksonville, that part of that ugly game right there. But yeah, kind of some uglier looking lineups for sure. But I do think it's a kind of a weird week where a lot of things will be spread out outside of, say, Jahmyr Gibbs and James Conner. But with that being said, that's all I got for you guys this week. So I hope you enjoyed. And if you did, or even if you didn't, make sure you like down below. Subscribe to the channel for brand new. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, make sure you leave them down below. I'm more than happy to answer them. I wish you all the best and have a Merry Christmas. I don't think I'll see you guys until afterwards. I don't remember exactly. But either way, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you want to call it. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you all next time.